order. The time is 5:02. Stan, we'll just go around and people say that they're present and where they're present at, Ypsilanti Township or not.
Stan Eldridge, Treasurer, Ypsilanti Township.
Debbie?
Debbie Swanson, present virtually in Ypsilanti Township.
Gloria?
Gloria Peterson, present, Ypsilanti Township.
Heather Joe Rowe, present, Ypsilanti Township.
John?
John Newman, present, Ypsilanti Township.
The camera's not on. I'm Brenda Stumbaugh, present, Ypsilanti Township Supervisor. And we'll wait for Jimmy to join us. So what we're going to do for the work session is just review the agenda. The first items are the public hearings. And we have, this is for Village Grove, it's for street light special assessment as well as the camera special assessment. And this was a court agreement and to have this installed. So if it's okay with everyone, we would like to have the public hearing and get some clarification on the camera costs, because the letter that the clerk's office sent out stated that they would pay for it, and I agree with that 100%. And we just want to make sure that it's in alignment with the legal agreement that they had. So it's all right if we have the public hearing and just not take action until we get more information on the legal agreement?
No problem.
Normally, we do these streetlight petitions and by the residents. And this one's just a little bit different. So any questions on that?
Nope.
Is there a hand raised? There's no hand raised, right?
Not on that, but I don't know if that was the, so I had a question about, I think it's this one, where it said like the signature part, it still had Karen's name on it.
Yeah, I noticed that
So
too.
attention Karen, Lovejoy Rose. So are we going to make sure that's changed?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the other question I had is on number 10, which is page 26 of the packet. It has no, it says the customer must sign below and acknowledge that the lighting design does not meet IESNA recommended practices. So I looked it up and it looked like it has something to do with the amount of like how they measure light, like by candle something it said. So I'm wondering, like, is that common for us to not have it meet the IESNA requirements or recommended practices?
Yes, DTE benefits from the more lights that we have. And so what they recommend is just recommended. It's not like a certain standard that's adopted by other engineering, like firms that have things for water or sewer or things like that. That's just what they recommend that we have, and we can have less than what is recommended by them.
Okay.
And we often do that, and we started doing it less because residents don't like a lot of street lights, like a airport, and it was like light pollution if we did it to their standards. So
Okay.
we kind of do A, what's needed, or B, what the residents really want.
So the signer who will sign off on it not meeting it would
Yep.
be the township. The township's the customer that's going to sign off on it not meeting that standard.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's the only question I had. That plus making sure that it says Heather's name instead of Karen's name.
And we're really, so we're just going to have the public hearing on it. We're not going to read the resolutions and everything, but those are good questions and we can answer questions. But yeah, we've done that before. Actually, in a lot of subdivisions that do not want that number of streetlights. Mr. Winters?
Yeah, actually, I was going to try to maybe add on to what Debbie was talking about, because if you recall, we raised those same questions about the AEI standard in that Crystal Pond development. And in fact, I think I raised some objections to that at the time. And then it was pointed out that when DTE comes out, they give what they believe is to be the adequate lighting in recognition of the township's own standards. And that, and going back from that point, back involved in Crystal Pond, I don't think there's ever been one that has met their standards. I think that it's very common for them to have more lighting than what has been viewed to be as acceptable, but that was something that came up during that discussion. So I know exactly what you're referring to, Debbie, on that form that talks about those standards. But I think as Brenda was saying, I don't think it's ever been one that has ever been checked. Yes, at least I haven't found one yet. It could be, but I don't think there are.
In the beginning, in the very beginning, when God created, we did, but it just, the lights are just too close together. Good catch. So we're just, so if it's okay with the board, we'd like to do is just have the public hearing and then come back and do the resolutions at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, I just had a comment.
I'm sorry. Yes, Heather.
Sorry, I can't figure out which one of my computers is working and not. I just wanted to say also that, thank you for everyone's like diligence in reading these. And I think that because this one is kind of a settlement that's arisen out of a court case, it's really important that like whatever we do here is kind of, like precedent setting, because it's the first one we've done this way. And so just thank you everyone for your patience as we like go through that process. And then also I just wanted to clarify, is where you're seeing Karen's name on page 27 and like a little box with the 11 on it? I just want to make sure I don't miss that.
Yeah, it's at attention, Karen Lovejoy Rowe, and it's on page, it's showing us page 26 when I'm going through the packet.
Okay.
No, 27. the very
27.
bottom.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
27.
Thank you. I made
Yeah.
a note of that. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Public comments. Is there anyone on there's 12, let me see. Lord have mercy. All right, we got it. No hands raised. The next item is the consent agenda, the minutes, statements and checks, and the treasurer's report. Any questions on that?
No.
Stan, do you want to talk about extending the day because of today is a snow day, and then actually you would like to?
Well, we talked last week for the trustees and others online. We talked last week about today would have been the last day for people to pay their winter taxes. If they didn't pay by today, and they paid sometime between February 17th and February 28th at the close of business, they would have incurred a 3% late fee before everything was sent to the county on March 1st. And talked a bit with the supervisor and with the deputy treasurer, and as long as nobody has an objection, we'd like to waive that 3% fee between February 17th and February 28th, so that residents who are already struggling with COVID issues and loss of job and income won't be burdened with that 3%. Still, though, if they don't pay by February 28th and it goes to the county, they do risk having a late fee applied by the county at 5%. And I haven't heard anything different on that right now, but we'd like to waive our 3% township fee.
Does anyone have any objections?
Oh,
I think it's a
no
good gesture,
Yeah.
John.
yeah, no objections. I just think that's a good, that's a good gesture.
Mhm. Heather?
And I just wanted to clarify, is it through the first business day in March, or is February 28th the end of business day? Is
The
that
the close of business on February 28th.
okay?
We have to have everything over to the county on March 1st.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're telling people right when they call.
And the mail is really running late as well.
It is,
I mean,
we had an occurrence last week where we received an envelope that was postmarked from September of 2020.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it just seems like the right thing to do in these uncertain times right now.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you, Stan. Attorney's report, Mr. Winters?
Madam Chair, I know I sent some letters out, quite a few letters out, but the one I want to talk about with the whole board is kind of a segue into the Zoom meeting we have with the Ypsilanti Community Schools Superintendent, Alina Zachary Ross, I believe, and Aaron Rose. And I think it was a good meeting in the sense of at least trying to at least have a dialogue. Heather spent a lot of time setting up that meeting and setting up the agenda, and I think it really helped us to stay focused on a number of those issues. First and foremost, it has to do with including the township in any dialogue as to the reuse or repurposing of school buildings still titled or owned by the Ypsilanti Community Schools that are located in the township. In the past, we've not been brought into those conversations, and we've had to deal with a number of issues after the fact, including Kaiser School, for example, that was sold to Greater Faith Transitions. We had some of the schools that were just demolished by neglect, that being Thurston and Kettering. I was really somewhat taken aback as to the degree in which the Willow Run High School and the middle school have been leased out to what appears to me to be a for-profit enterprise, Play at the Cage. We were promised to get those leases, and they did come over to Heather on Friday, and I've not gone through those leases chapter and verse, but I've gone through the ones that Play at the Cage to note that I'm not sure what I think about having a 30-year lease that generates $108,000 in rent to the school, and another one for $30,000 a year to Play at the Cage for 10 years, it appears. And I don't know how to handle that question in the context of how it fits into our zoning, because our zoning does not allow that. At the same time, there is this constant burden by the taxpayers in the former Willow Run School District to continue to be on the hook for the millages, for the bonds that were used to finance the high school and middle school and make improvements to some of the other elementary schools. It's not clear to me as to the equity that is being spread amongst the new school district, with the taxpayers in the former Willow Run having to shoulder that burden. There is a lot more to discuss beyond that hour-and-a-half conversation, but again, I'm glad that we at least had that conversation. And at some point in time, I think I pointed out during that meeting that while there may have been a lawsuit between Play at the Cage and Ypsilanti Community Schools over the fulfillment of one or both of those leases that are currently, that was entered into between that district and Play at the Cage, the township was not a party to that litigation, and the township has not yet had its say on whether or what, if anything, the township should do vis-a-vis those leases. I'm just saying that because over the years, we have been approached by other, I think Stan and maybe Brenda are aware of it too, and Heather, that people wanting to do certain types of uses for recreational expansion, but they were in the wrong zoning district to begin with. And again, we're trying to establish some degree of uniformity and fairness in how we treat anyone coming into the community that has a good business plan. I don't think there's any question in anybody's mind that if you had seen the conditions of those schools before they were demolished, and by the way, they were in that condition for a number of years before they were demolished. We had people breaking into those buildings, getting hurt, getting cut, et cetera, et cetera. Had those buildings been owned by a private owner, we would have been in court many years ago to have those buildings demolished. I'm not saying we can go back and rewrite and revisit the history. We can only go forward. That's why I guess someone once said, that's why the rear view mirror is much smaller than the windshield, because you can't, you got to look forward. But I am concerned about a number of issues that we discussed about the buildings that are currently under lease. I'm also concerned that whether or not the persons leasing those properties are paying their tax, since they are being used for a private enterprise, and then they lose their tax exempt status, in my opinion. That's why I asked Linda Goslin and Brian McCleary to weigh in on that issue. I never did receive a direct answer as to what the district's plans are for that athletic field across from the high school that really adjoins the township's community center softball fields. I know board members have also raised the question, is there a way of at least having that be integrated into the township's park system, given the fact that the residents who reside in that northeast quadrant of the township that are really paying significant, I think Brenda may have the number, Heather, they may be paying additional 7 mils for those bonds. That's something that at least would be worth exploring, in my opinion, as to, because that's a valuable asset that's paid for by the township taxpayers, although they were part of the Willow Run School District. So there's a lot of questions that I think are raised by that meeting, and I think it's time to really drill down, not in an adversarial manner, but in a very, very straightforward approach as to the fact that we, who are you as board members and they as school board members, are serving in many ways the same constituents in terms of the residents and taxpayers. And so we should be working we should be rolling in the same direction as opposed to being at cross purposes. I'm also concerned as whether or not those dollars that are being generated from these leases, are they actually being dedicated dollar for dollar towards retirement of the bonds? I'm not a bond attorney, but I do believe that over the years there's something that doesn't feel right when you bond for a purpose of educational buildings, and then those buildings are then being leased to a for-profit enterprise. I understand as long as the bondholders get paid, they probably don't care, and that's why they keep on raising the millage rates to make sure that they meet that principal and interest indebtedness. It's just that we don't know everything about these financial dealings, and I'd be the first to admit right now that I have far more questions than I do answers, but I at least wanted to take a moment and fill in the rest of the board members that we did have a good meeting, and we had a good meeting, and there was a lot of discussion, and I know that Supervisor Stumble and Clerk Rowe and Treasurer Eldridge may have a different take on some of the things I'm speaking of, but I wanted to bring that up while it was on my mind, because I think we have a long ways to go to get to the bottom as to just what the plans are going to be for the future. There is a sinking fund millage, by the way, that was passed by the taxpayers in those districts, which generates another $1.6 million per year. And all of those dollars are supposed to be dedicated towards repairs and improvements to the actual facilities. That's why it's called the sinking fund millage. And I'm not really sure we have that information that really sets forth what capital improvement plan, I think it was asked for by Clerk Rowe and Supervisor Stumble for more details on that sinking fund capital improvement plan. But I do believe right now that as we go into the next, into this COVID year and into the future, that we really need to have some kind of understanding, be it through a memorandum of understanding or some kind of an agreement with the district as to our involvement, because we still have a lot of residents who are inquiring about what are you going to do with the former Thurston Elementary School playground as well as Kettering. And some people want it to be a park. Some people may have other ideas for what it could be used, but we still have a zoning ordinance that has to also be our guide to what can and cannot be allowed. And so I don't have anything scripted here. I just wanted to go off the top of my head on while it was so fresh in my mind as to some of my impressions of that meeting. And but I think it's a good start, but I think we have a long ways to go.
I agree. Questions or comments on the meeting? Any questions or comment?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, Mr. Newman.
How many years are left on those bonds? Do you know, or?
They just refinanced them is what the superintendent said at the meeting, but we don't have copies of any of that information. Do you know, does anyone know? I don't know. We didn't have copies of it, and they said they just refinanced, so.
So, okay, so that is where Willow Run merged with Ypsilanti Community Schools,
Correct.
and so there's no more Willow Run.
But the debt is Willow Run, is what we were, the separated debt. Each district kept their debt.
Oh, so we're in effect paying on a school that's no longer in existence.
They're right. For several schools that are no longer in existence for educational purposes. They've been sold, they've been leased out, they've been used for other things than what, well, and the high school especially was the big bond that was approved, and the middle school. Those are the two newest.
Yeah, but it's
biggest
not
bonds.
just debt. It's like they're still paying on the actual bonds that created the middle school, high school complex. So there's that, plus there's the debt that was with the districts, each district when they consolidated. So the bond that built the middle school, high school complex is still being paid.
Right.
And then, I mean, I don't know if that's considered the debt. Both districts had debt that was on top of that, because when they combined, that's the reason why they consolidated, is because they had other debt. So I don't know if they lumped that all together, or if I know the Willow Run houses pay for that millage or bond or whatever that created that newer building. And that's a long standing, I mean, I can't remember how many years, it's probably not that hard to check, but it was a.
Well, I know they just refinanced, and I'm not aware of it. We were going to get copies of it. I mean, they sent us the lease and stuff, but we need to understand the financing. But when they merged two districts, the board could have decided to levy the same amount of millages on the debt, is what I was told. And they didn't do that. So Willow Run School debt is higher than Ypsilanti Community Schools. And then we have the Stinkin' Fund, and what else do you have? There's another
WISD. So there's the WISD. There's
so there's a lot of millages on top. But if you live in a Willow Run School District, you're paying 7 mils more when they merge. So we're trying, that's the next, it's such an unfair. It's just, it's wrong, because the schools are not being utilized for their intended purpose. It's not for education. So we've talked to Senator Jeff Irwin about it. I asked if they could forgive the debt like they did in Detroit schools. He said that the lawmakers are not interested in doing that, you know. So I don't know. We just need more actual information on the debt amount and what it includes. Kind of like the leases, until you actually have a copy of it and you can read it, you know, it's, you
Mhm.
don't know really what it includes. So we will be getting that next. But it's a very uneven debt. And someone said that we're paying the same amount of taxes as Ann Arbor schools and Willow Run School District.
Mm,
But yet there's only 2 schools left.
wow.
Debbie, is that correct too? Yes. George School's being leased out, used for something else. So,
And Ipsy
Heather?
was, George was Ipsy, so you have Holmes and Ford. And yep, that's it for Willow Run.
Right.
Yeah, I just, well, I'm happy to go back and look. I was thinking that it wasn't that many years ago when they voted to do that, but I can't find it off the top of my head. But I just wanted to share with you guys as board members, until very recently, I lived in the Willow Run School District. And when I went back after meeting about this and like just understanding more and looked at my taxes and what we paid, like it will just open your eyes to like, this isn't right. Like, it's just not right for our residents that live there. So I would just challenge all of you to go to the bsnaonline.com and like put in an address over in the Willow Run School District and you can see it. So just on my old home where we lived for almost 10 years, 40 of my 54 mills for the summer taxes all went to the Willow Run School District, which if it was actually a running functional school district would be lovely. And I would be more than happy to do that. But like, it doesn't exist anymore. And we're not serving any children through those funds anymore, as far as, you know, we can see when we're utilizing those buildings for other reasons. So if you go to that website and you put in someone's address, like, you know, Trustee Peterson, put in your old address on Rootaville or Roulette and just see what it says. So if you go, you look at your home and then you click on tax information and then you scroll down, you'll see you can hit on winter, summer, you got to hit on the summer ones. And then when you look down further, right below, there will be a barcode, and just beneath that, you can see exactly how many mills you pay for the dollar amount you pay. So what my total was, more than half of my taxable, you know, payment went to things outside of our township and county. So anyways, that's my spiel about it, but now I just can't stop talking about it because it's just not right. You know, these are lower income housings in our community, and like we all know the perpetual cycle, and it's not right. So we're going to keep working at it. But thanks for listening to my TED Talk today.
And it does have a direct impact upon the township as a whole too, because whether you're in Ypsi or Willow Run, right now this board may have to go out, and this is a year in which we're going to have to renew some millages. And I know over the years, a lot of people, when they, you know, it's kind of like a house payment. Sometimes you don't pay as much attention to the interest rate as you do. What's my monthly mortgage payment going to be? And for a lot of people, it's okay, I'm paying X thousands of dollars in taxes. And even though, as Heather said, the vast majority was going to say to 40 mills for, you know, the Willow Run district, it's paid to the township. And many times the township is perceived as being the taxing authority that's getting all these tax dollars. And Stan can probably hear that more and more as a treasurer, that people sometimes don't differentiate the fact that we're the taxing authority that collects the taxes and distributes those, but they pay their tax bill at the township civic center. And so as you go through your renewals of police and fire, recycling, garbage, recreation, bike paths, there's a breaking point for a lot of the neighborhoods that I think have been unfairly burdened by this debt. And it's going to impact, I think, at some point in time, the township operations, because as that debt millage, at one time it may have been, I think that they may have been 25 or 30-year bonds, I believe, at the beginning. I have no idea as to what they refinanced those bonds to
He said
do.
it was 40. Doug, didn't she say she was paying 14 million or something like that? For the Willow Run,
She
they had to
did.
borrow the money. And the
Yeah.
interest rate is like 5% in order to pay back the bond. So there's, I mean, once we can get the actual documentation, but I do have the 2018 taxes and what's the last one I have here? That I had 2020. But it says that the debt for Willow Run is 13 mils and the debt for Ypsi schools was 7. So that's a difference on the debt levy in those 2 school districts, but they're not being used as schools, so I think it's ridiculous. But anyways, well, as we get more information and actual something we can read, it'll be better than what they say. And I think we just keep advocating that we have to do something at the state level for our residents. Debbie, did you have a question or comment?
Just a comment. The only other thing that I would want us to pay attention to is that in almost every case of the Willow Run former school district, however planning was done when those schools were built, there was an intentional purpose to put green spaces where those schools are. So in the heart of a lot of our neighborhoods, on the eastern side of the township, the heart of those neighborhoods were the schools and the green space that's
Right.
around them. So if they're not a school and people are rethinking what's going to happen there, I think the township has a role to play because those were intentionally built in the neighborhood as kind of a shared community green space. And a lot of the neighborhoods, that's the green space that's there. So if people start getting ideas or planning about it, I think the township has some say because that's the green space that those neighborhood has. And they're often attached to or near township park space. So like Holmes and Wendell. So anyway, I just think that's something to keep in mind too, that the importance of, like, you can go and see the footprint in a lot of those schools where they were intentionally, purposefully planned to be an integral part of the neighborhood. So if they're not there, there's at least green space there. And for quality of life and looking at those things, I think that there's an obligation to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I agree. And there's been meetings with different neighborhoods on that. And we actually talked about that too, about the demolished buildings and what they propose to do with it. And the key is that they have to, well, they should have notified us before they did anything, and and it seems like they're kind of continuing down that path, and hopefully this meeting is a new beginning. And Aaron Rose seems connected to the community, and hopefully he can make a big difference in how they approach it. And at least let us know. I started going on their agendas and just trying to see what's going on now in regards to the properties. And they did have a settlement yesterday with Play It at the Cage that was on their agenda, but they went into closed session. So I don't know what the settlement, I couldn't see it. And I tried to look it up on the eWashington, and it's too much work. I don't know how to do it very well. Takes me an hour to find out I can do something, but we're going to keep doing and keep you know, the board and everyone updated on it, and hopefully we'll get some resolution. It was a good meet. It was a good beginning. I would say that. So. Is there, under new business, we have the first reading of the proposed ordinance amending prohibiting recreational marijuana in Ypsilanti Township by the Recreational Marijuana Ballot Initiative and to extend it for another year. Thank you, Jimmy. Is Jimmy here yet? Jimmy brought this up at the last meeting and he was spot on. You know, time was getting away from us to, Attorney Winters, I don't know if you want to say anything. The resolutions in the packet.
I would just say that as a backdrop to the resolution and the ordinance, I also sent over a letter that has an attachment from planning consultant Ben Carlisle. And as you saw in that memorandum, there are a number of policy decisions, policy questions that will need to be answered by this board to give direction. Also, we have 3 new trustees on this board who also need to weigh in on those policy. So the thought process is that sometime in the near future, we could have a dedicated work session with consultant Carlisle to give, to actually receive maybe the board's input on those policy questions that are raised in that memorandum that was attached to my letter. And then at some point in time, the whole purpose of, well, one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to keep a sunset provision in here was to encourage the board to fulfill its commitment to have community engagement with all interested stakeholders in this issue. And unfortunately for all of us, no one at the time could have foreseen the full impact of the COVID and the difficulty it is in having those community outreach meetings that would include everyone, not just those who happen to have the ability to connect through the computer. So we need to take this to the community, but we also need to have the policy questions, I think, answered as best we can. And hopefully we can have a special working session just on that topic. And again, those questions have been outlined. And I would encourage everybody to, write down your thoughts. So when we have this meeting, we can make the best use of getting input from this board as to what direction the planners should be going, since it will involve the planning commission as well. So that was just the backdrop to the resolution and the ordinance amendment.
Any questions?
So
John?
what we would be discussing is to move forward, just the idea of moving forward with taking the idea to the community of a marijuana, medical marijuana facility, or not facility, but the ability for people to open up medical marijuana stores.
Well, I think the questions that Ben Carlisle raised, they were more, it was that and much more, in the sense that the board has to decide, for example, there's certain marijuana uses or certain types that they wish to exclude.
Right.
And there's a whole list of those, from growers to provision retailers, secure transportation. Are there locations in the township that the board feels would be inappropriate for those uses? Does the board prefer to have a cap and competitive bid process in regards to zoning and regulatory considerations? There's quite a few. There's a number of lawsuits. There's a number of lawsuits down in the city of Warren right now, where Warren got into some major trouble, legally speaking, in how they handled the award of these licenses in the city of Warren, which has resulted in significant legal exposure to the city of Warren. In fact, if you recall, the city, I think the mayor down there wanted to settle the case, and the city council rejected that because and it's turned into a real financial mess for the city of Warren in regards to legal exposure. There's also been information gathered that the taxing benefits of what a lot of communities were expecting to receive from the ones that do have licenses has not been realized. So there's a lot of different issues that need to be really discussed at the board level to give direction, I think, to the planning consultants and other people involved in this. And that's where I think the community engagement will play a large role, but I think the direction has to come from this township board.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people look at states like Colorado and places like that that are booming, but it's at the expense of something else. So I that's what I what was thinking when you were talking.
I do know that some of the states that have anticipated X millions of dollars in revenue fell far short of the expectation. So I think there's a lot of things on the table in regards to the different types of licenses that can be given in a community. Again, going back to from being a processor, there's also from the lab standpoint of testing the facilities. So there's just a lot of different uses beyond just the retail. I think in that memo prepared by Ben and I, he pointed out that there are 30 licensed establishments right now that are selling marijuana in the city of Ann Arbor, in the city of Ypsi, and maybe a few more in the city of Wayne. But so there's plenty of retail establishments within the radius of the city of Ypsi and the city of Ann Arbor. Doesn't mean you can't have more. It's just a question as again as to how many do you want to have, where you want to have them located, other issues that need to be decided by the board. And I think that once we have a working session, you can roll up your sleeves and just fire away, because I think that that's what has to be done in order to move this forward. We have time to do it. And it's not an opt-out where you opt out altogether, but it is an opt-out that requires a sunset provision. And again, I think that with the new board, that we can make this a priority.
Any other questions, comments on that? All right, this will be,
I would just like to say, I think that's a great idea to have the work session. I would hope that the work session would include like an informational part before we got to the part of input, because I feel like I need more information about things. So if there's something I could be reading or something that I need to do to get to that point where it could be useful, I feel like I need a step before like having input where I can be learning about things. So that would. Thank you, Attorney Winters, for at least noting that we have new people who need to be kind of brought up to speed.
thank you. All right. And then the next agenda item is request to approve the proposal for professional services from Bar Engineering regarding the spillway assessment in amount not to exceed $29,000. This is Michael Sarin is trying to get on. I don't know if he was able to get on. I don't see him on that, but Bar Engineering is our professional engineer for our hydro dam. Are there any questions on, we have to hire them as a professional service because they've been our engineers on this for a very long time. And it has to do with FERC and it's very complicated. And we have to figure out the spillway issues. I'm not going to go into the dead fish that were found downstream because we don't know what caused that, but they often look at a hydro dam as contributing to the death of fish. So a lot of issues are going on with the dam right now that I'm learning about. Sometimes you just learn so many new things at the township, but there was 3 fish kills, and sometimes it's blamed on the hydro where you release water from the bottom of the dam. So we continue to have meetings on that as well, but every year we have to do something with FERC and we hire this company to do it as a professional. I wish people could see our dam. More people could visit it and go see it. It's an excellent condition. It's a lot of pride in historic. It's beautiful, and you could tell that Henry Ford's hand was in it. You can just look at it and see it, you know. So I think Mike will be on the regular meeting if his internet allows him. Questions?
I had one that kind of goes.
I didn't know if okay, I'm sorry.
Is there somebody else who had their?
I'm sorry?
I don't know if somebody else had their hand up. There's 3 things on the agenda tonight where I'm wondering, this is one of them. This one on the rain garden and Loon Feather and the Paint Creek project. when I look at those three things, I'm wondering if there would be an opportunity that we create for the township to be interacting or connecting with like local schools, because a lot of times they're looking for ways to help students look at real world problems. And these are all three ways that we probably could get students connected. I know there's a SEMIS project that's like the Michigan, it's a stewardship program that works on like environmental education. And often teachers are in classrooms trying to create like made up problems, where
Mhm.
all three of these are problems that are actually locally connected to our community, connected to the environment, where students could learn and even possibly come up with some ideas. So I'm wondering if that's something that we could do. I would be interested in exploring and maybe connecting how we already have teachers that are part of this coalition in local schools that are in our township. It would be as easy as just kind of helping figure out if there'd be a way to do that. And I think that would be a powerful way to have youth engagement and school connectivity with the township.
On the spillway, I'm not sure, Deb, because that's like FERC and the fish kill and trying to understand some of that, and the lake quality is a big issue, and has been for a long time with algae bloom and whatnot. I think those are good issues, and we've done plantings to help with purple loosestrife around Ford Lake, and we've utilized volunteers on that. The rain garden, I think, would be very good for stormwater management that we put at the skate park. So we can teach people, because you still have to maintain it every year, but the first year you have to know what you're doing. And that's why the Drain Commission is proposed to do it, because the first year is very critical to this, I guess, the success of the rain garden. And then after that, we still have are you looking for like volunteers, or just so people can come and observe how it?
No, I'm kind of actually looking for them to work with or be partnered with a school, if there's a school or a class that's willing to do that, to even share with some of the planting ideas and the research and stuff like that. If we're handing over the grant money, I think it could be valuable to, or if we're connecting it to the
Yeah.
grant, to just have that opportunity. And I don't know, maybe somebody else would do it, or maybe these are coming too soon for that to happen, but there are classrooms who've planted rain gardens. There are students who've
Right.
done some of that work. So having them involved in that is more likely to just be better for the community as a whole, rather than somebody else. And they usually always get support from like the Drain Commission or the county extension, this and that. So
Especially at the skate park. I mean, it would be good, but I'm not sure with COVID. I don't know enough to say today, but it's a good idea going forward for sure. And I think there's going to be lots of opportunities to do things like that, especially with the environment. Or we have another gentleman that wants to do garden growing at one of our parks in the Willow Run district at Apple Ridge, actually. And he's applying for a grant for that too. And the whole idea is to involve the students in that, so that we can teach them gardening. And so that's going to be coming forward too. That would be another good one. It might be more in the summer, but still, maybe they could get credit like the Scouts do or something. We do. I know the Scouts do a lot with us, the Boy Scouts, but I don't know of any classes, but that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. But not for today, not for these projects, right? Or just in the future.
I didn't know
how.
if there's a way for that to happen. I don't know if there's a way to connect if there were some classrooms that were interested. I mean, I
I
know
don't
there
think
are.
Ford Lake, I don't think the dam would be the right setting for that, right? It would be a good educational opportunity. And as far as the rain garden, I don't know when they do it. I can find out, their schedule on when the Drain Commission goes out and they have, what do you call it, master gardeners or horticulture. I'm not sure who does the first year of it, but we could, if they do it before the school's out, I mean, that'd be a good opportunity. And what was the third one you were looking at?
On the packet on Paint Creek.
Oh, that was a grant that they did, yeah. And that's a portion that we already paid for that, but they do Paint Creek projects a lot. So I think there is opportunity. I don't know about those two. And I'll check, I can find out about the rain garden. Great idea. Any other questions? All right, the next item is the request for authorized circuit court litigation to abate a public nuisance at 2835 Coolidge. Michael Radzik is on the.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is a licensed junkyard, and for the new board members, junkyards in the township are required to be licensed by the township with a business license, in addition to any state licensing that might be required for the type of activity that they're doing. In this case, a new company named Franklin Yards LLC, doing business as Franklin Truck Salvage, came to the township board back in 2016, asking for a new license after they purchased property that was previously being operated as a junkyard by a different operator. The township board did grant them a new license, and they've been operating ever since. Those licenses are required to be renewed annually. They don't come to the board for their annual renewal, but they do come to staff, and we verify that they're still active and still properly operating under all of the approved requirements that the board set on them each year. In this particular case, and by the way, those licensing periods for junkyards, it's not the calendar year, it runs from July 1st through June 30th of each year. In this particular case, at the end of 2019, it became obvious that they had not applied to renew their license. And when we contacted them about it, they indicated that the business had been sold and transferred on paper to another corporate entity. And we've been literally working with them now for the last year and a half to try to get them legal again, to apply for a new license under the new entity that they claim owns it. The only problem at this point is they've not submitted a formal application. All the information they've given us regarding who owns the property and who's operating the business has been, red flags have been raised. Specifically, the entity, corporate entity that they claim is operating the property was actually dissolved, legally dissolved through the state by the owner of the property late last year. And so assessing says the property is owned by Detroit Holdings Corporation. Unfortunately, that corporation shows to have been dissolved. And when I spoke to the owner of the company about that last month, he first denied it. And then when I brought to his attention what the state record said, he admitted it and said it was just a paperwork problem. And it was very vague and non-committal. Also, the new corporate entity that they claim is operating the junkyard is owned, according to the state records, by a completely separate third party that doesn't appear to know anything about it. So we have a junkyard operator and a property owner being one and the same that cannot be verified and is currently not operating under an active township license. And the state licensing that goes along with that is also and has not been verified. And so we've done everything that we can to try to resolve this short of litigation, and we've come up empty-handed. So now I'm asking for your authority to engage McLean and Winters in circuit court with this gentleman to try to get them either bring them into compliance so that they are operating legally, or if that's not possible, to shut them down as an alternative.
Other questions or comments on? No? Next sign is yours, Mike. It is the document with the state of Michigan for records management.
Yes, thank you. I put a little bit of history in here for the benefit of the new trustees. Back 3 years ago, the Office of Community Standards engaged with the state of Michigan. It's technically called the State Department of Technology Management and Budget. And a subset within that office is the Records Management Services Office. The Record Management Services Office is the one that enforces all of the legally required record retention schedules that cities and townships and villages in Michigan are required to adhere to. And any conversion of regulated records, and in this case, it would be the conversion of old paper documents that are regulated to be retained at some level to a digital version. If you want to convert those old paper records to digital and you want to retain the new digital version as your official record for record retention purposes, it has to be done under the supervision and approval of the State Records Management Office. The state of Michigan has a contract with a private firm named Graphic Sciences Incorporated. The acronym is GSI, and they are under contract with the state of Michigan to perform these digital conversion services for the state of Michigan Records Office. So any city or township that wants to convert any of their old paper documents to digital versions as an effort to update that technology, which, as I'm sure you know, would make it extraordinarily easier for staff and the public to search for those old documents, because you can do it online if it's made available online. If you want to do it, you have to do it under the supervision of the State of Michigan Records Office. So back in 2018, we took all the old property files, and there were about 800,000 documents involved. And GSI, under supervision of the State Records Office, scanned and converted all of those property files to PDF digital files. And it took a long time, but it was a very successful conversion project. And today we search those PDF files on a regular basis for our own internal working purposes, but also to fulfill FOIA requests from members of the public and from consultants that are doing business here in the township. That was phase one, and we made mention that phase two would be coming. We intended and budgeted to do phase two last year, but COVID put a crimp in that. So now we're back again this year. And rather than budgeting it in the 2021 budget, knowing that there would be a new board coming on, I chose instead to bring it to the township board for approval with a specific budget amendment that would go along with it, so that you would have an opportunity to not only review and evaluate the project, but also to approve the funding for it. So this phase two is about half the number of documents that need to be converted from old paper files to digital files. And this would be the final phase. There would be no additional phases as far as the Office of Community Standards is concerned. What we're asking you to approve funding for and to sign the contracts to do this time, the state of Michigan through GSI came in and they looked at all of the files that we said we wanted to convert from paper to digital. And they determined that it had to be broken down into 4 separate smaller projects. And as you can see before you is projects 1 through 4. The first one is the assessing department parcel files. As we were going through this and talking with Linda Goslin and Brian McCleary, they specifically asked, when you do phase 2 of the building and planning files, could we please include the assessor's office land division records? Under the state Schedule 10 retention schedule, the land division records are required to be kept permanently in perpetuity forever. They came in and they looked at the assessor's files. There's about 65,000 documents that would be converted to PDF images, 8.5 by 14 inch, at an estimated cost of $10,465. The second project is the old planning department paper files. These are primarily legal size paper files, 8.5 by 14. But as you can see, there's over 162,000 documents that have to be scanned. In addition to that, there are 10,873 engineering drawings. What engineering drawings are, these are the large format, either building plans or development plans, engineering plans. These are generally either 36 by 24 or 36 by 48 inch size. And there's, as I said, there's about 11,000 of those. So that second project subset would be a little over $40,000. The third project then would be the OCS planning parcel files. And these are planning and zoning records that date back prior to us using the computer for retention. And as you can see, 65,000 legal size images and 2,500 engineered drawings. And the final one is the building department drawings. These are the old paper building plans. I'll give you an example. When Kroger's decided to put a store on Whitaker Road, they would have submitted these large detailed building plans for review. And under the state retention laws, we are required to keep those plans for the life of the building plus 7 years. So it's very important that these are retained. We have, as you can see, about 8,500 of the large format drawings that have to be converted and about 50,000 smaller letter or legal size drawings. So altogether, we're looking at about 350,000 documents that have to be converted. The bulk of those, 342,650, are legal size pieces of paper, and just shy of 22,000 of the large format engineering drawings that have to be scanned. All of these will be, as you can imagine, this is a tremendously diverse hodgepodge of paper files. They're not all assembled in neat little stacks, stapled and whatnot. A lot of them are put together. They've been worked on and used and referred to over the years. And so part of the cost of this is they will actually physically box up these things, take them to their production facility on the north of Detroit under supervision of the State Records Office. They will disassemble each file packet, individual packet, put it in an order that makes sense, that we have agreed on with them in advance. They scan each individual one, and then they send us in incremental periods, they'll send us discs for us to review to make sure that this is acceptable. Not only the quality of the images that they're scanning, but think of on your computer, every time you save a file on your computer, you have to name it something. So for future reference and for ease of searching for these things later on, we had to come up with a naming scheme for these files. We're going to use the same naming scheme approximately that we used for our property files, which was a combination of the street address and the parcel identification number. So each file name starts with the parcel identification number and then ends with the street address. But as you can imagine, with parcel splits and parcel combinations over time, a project may have started out with a street address of, let's just say, 2200 East Michigan Avenue, parcel number K11, blah, 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 001. During the development process, it gets split. New addresses are then submitted and assigned. And now you've got 3 or 4 new parcel ID numbers with new street addresses to actually match up and align with what exists today. And so there has to be it's sort of complicated, but there has to be a frame of reference for how you can search for these things. And when you actually do the searching, you have to have some knowledge of how this is done in order to find what you're looking for. So we have already done all the legwork in advance with GSI on what the naming scheme for all these files will be. And it comes out to an estimated cost of $81,078. And this estimate is based on GSI's best estimate of how many documents have to be scanned into images. They came in and they spent a lot of time with us. Together, we pulled random samples, numerous 7 to 10 random samples from each of these 4 different buckets of types of files. And this is their best guess on what the estimate is. I'm asking for funding not to exceed $100,000, which gives us about $19,000 in contingency money. The reason is, when we did phase one, the original estimate was approximately $70,000. It turned out to cost us well over $100,000. And GSI, the board members who were on the board back then will remember GSI apologized profusely because their estimate was way off, and they said that that was an anomaly as far as they were concerned. They've given us assurances that this is a pretty darn good estimate, but I am asking for a small amount of contingency money in the event there's an overrun. Then we won't have to come back and ask for additional funding unless it goes over the $100,000. Just to give you an idea too, because I know that there has been some questions or some thoughts about why can't our clerical staff do this work? Well, first of all, if you're going to convert these documents with the intention of retaining the digital version as your official record, it has to be done under supervision of the State of Michigan Records Office. That's number one. But I think more importantly, I worked last week with some of our clerical staff up in OCS. It does take some time, especially to scan these large format drawings. I had Jane Carr, who does the majority of the work with the building department files. She did some test runs for us, and just to scan, to disassemble, scan, and then name and store the PDF files just for the 21,873 engineering drawings would take her approximately 4 months, 100% full time, with no extra time off, without answering an extemporaneous phone call or anything else. Not including the 342,000 other documents that would have to be scanned. And I don't know how long that would take, but I'm guessing it would be well over a year, maybe 2 years. And so we don't have the staff to do that now. We would have to hire someone, and to have somebody as in a clerical position doing nothing but this for several years would cost way more than what we're asking for to fund this project. So I'm respectfully asking for your approval for the supervisor and the clerk to sign these contract agreements with the State of Michigan and GSI, and to move forward with converting these documents. All of the new digital documents will be the official files. The OCS old paper documents will be destroyed by the State of Michigan after we have reviewed and accepted the digital files. However, the assessor's office would prefer to keep their original documents, box them up, and put them in storage someplace else. And so they're going to be getting those returned to them. If you have any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
We have Heather.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I know just for other history, I know that the clerk's office prior has used this company to do similar projects just for, those files that are either really, really old or different sizes, and they do a really good job. But Mike, I just had a question about the retention of the originals. And I know you said the assessor's office prefers to keep the original, which I myself can't let go of paper for some reason. I'm trying. But you said the deed splits, right? Those will be also kept in paper format, right?
The assessor's files are their land division files. So these would be parcels that were either split or parcels that were combined into new parcels. And they would prefer to box up and keep all the old paper even after they get the digital originals that the state will bless and deem as the official record retention document.
Okay, thank you. I like that idea. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Newman.
Yes, well, you answered one of the questions as far as the state destroying the documentation. Do we have the opportunity to keep the records if we wanted to?
Yes, if we prefer to keep them, we can.
Just as a backup, or? Yeah.
I suppose, but one of the reasons that we want to digitize them is because, as you know, over time, these old paper documents degrade, and eventually you won't be able to read them unless you take extraordinarily expensive measures to try to protect them and put them in climate controlled storage and whatnot. So when we did the property files, the state did destroy them. And we intend to do that here unless the board directs differently. If the board would be more comfortable saving them, we can certainly tell the state that we're going to have those returned to us. In which case we would box them up and put them in storage someplace else because we don't have room for them in the Civic Center. I think most of the old stuff is in the basement at the fire department. But having been down there recently, I can tell you it's full. There's stuff laying all over the place and we probably need more storage room.
Okay.
So whatever the will of the board is, we'll do.
All right. And one more question. You stated that you didn't budget for the, I guess, the $100,000 this year, but it's you have it somewhere.
It's actually on your agenda tonight, where it should be. It's budget amendment number 3, which is the
Okay.
last item on the new business agenda.
All
Would
right.
be, we're taking 100,000 from the building department fund balance
Okay.
and earmarking it specifically to pay for this project.
Okay.
And if for some reason the estimate is way off and it's going to cost more than 100,000, I will be back before you to explain what happened and to ask for additional money.
So, okay, so if, let's say it's another 40,000 and, you know, we only plan for 100,000, at that point, we're all in and, you know, it's not really like we can say no. So,
True.
yeah, okay.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I appreciate you, you know, wanting to come back and let us know. Yeah.
Well, unless GSI did a bad job like they did for us the first time on their estimating, it should come in at or under the $100,000 not to exceed amount.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Heather, did you have another question?
I was just gonna, I think Mike covered it, but just about our space, we're just running out of space. And I think, again, as much as I love paper documents, we're gonna have to, like, you know, eventually learn to let some of them go. So I agree with you, Mike, on, you know, just being diligent about that. And I did read, you know, I think it was under section 9 in your thing that you have the opportunity to review the documents that they return you on those discs. And then if there's any complication with them, you have a certain time frame to let them know and they can, you know, address the issue and then rescan them or whatever they need to do to, like, mitigate the problem.
That's correct. The state will not destroy records until we tell them that we're satisfied with all of the digital production outcome and we give them the go ahead. So if we find something, there is a grace period before that happens. So we do have an opportunity, even if we want to change our mind and say, give us the paper back, we can always do that. I would also just quickly mention something Heather said reminded me. We get the original digital images come back to us on a DVD disc. It's a high quality DVD disc. And what we do, we give that to our IT department. They copy it onto our network drive. And then we take those original discs and we keep them locked up in a safe place as the original record. And we use the copied version on the network drive as our the resource for everyday work and for FOIA searching and all of that stuff. And as you probably know, I hope you know, the IT department does an outstanding job. They back up our network drives at least once and sometimes twice every day. And those backups are duplicated and backed up at least 1 or 2 more times in cloud storage. And so there's a redundancy of backup after backup after backup. Plus, we still have those original discs that are locked up in a safe place. So, and then in terms of how we use it, we can dump those PDF files onto the network like we did before. We can attach them to our BSA software so that we can search for something by parcel ID number or address, or you can attach them to other software products that are out there that we may use. I heard through the grapevine, the clerk's office uses something called
Laserfish.
Laserfish or any other software product for record retention or record management, those files can be placed into those software products and used that way. But you have to convert them from paper to PDF to start with, regardless of what software program you intend to put them and use them with in the future.
Gloria?
Yes, Mike, thank you so much. You explained this very well. That was my question. There has to be a backup. It should be a backup of documentation that's so important for many years. I know about files and keeping files in file rooms. Anything can happen. Leased out a space for files when I was in office. They had the place burned down. And, you know, those were old records for 7 years or more. But if you don't have, I'm so glad that your IT people will make numerous copies of this document. It's so important. And I thank you. That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And I would encourage the new board members to talk with Travis McDougall, their IT manager. Security and the security and the safety of the records is one of his primary things that he worries about. I'm sure he loses sleep over it, and he does a really fabulous job. And I would encourage you to have that conversation with him and ask those questions so that you can further and more deeper understanding of how that works. But you're right, you can lose digital images just like you have a flood or a fire or a hurricane comes through and you lose your paper records. But I'm very comfortable with the redundant backup after backup as a safety net for the retention of these records.
All right. Debbie?
Yep. So you answered a lot of questions with other people's questions, but the last one I have is, so I know you said we're not really in a position to have a staff person do the backwards work. But once we do this copying, are we in a position as a township to do the digital processing moving forward? Or are we always going to be in a position where we're going to have to pay somebody to get us caught up?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked. Going forward, and this was put into place a couple of years ago in the Community Standards Office, both for the Building Department and the Planning Department. Whenever new plan sets get submitted to us and they're on those large format engineered drawings, whether it's a development of a new subdivision or a shopping center, or just a building plan for a new structure or a new house, we require the applicant to give us a digital copy along with the paper copy. And we will not accept it unless we get that. So there is no more need to scan separately because we already get it digitally. Our challenge though is we get that digital submittal and the building folks review it and they make changes so then we have to chase the applicant to make the changes and submit the revised digital set to us. But our staff does a really good job of following up with that. So I hope that answers your question. We've cut out the need to do that going forward by instituting new procedural changes.
Any more questions or comments? Stan, did you get your questions answered? From Mike?
I think so. Mine was just for the rest of the board. Was in response, we spent quite a bit of money for the Laserfish system a couple of years ago. And I was under the impression that every department was going to use that to copy the documents and that we wouldn't have to go outside anymore, but it sounds like we do, so.
I think we had to pay for the clerk's office to go out too, right? We're still trying to get caught up on that. I also, with Laserfish, everyone has to have a, like a user, and you pay for each license or person to use it. Under Mike's approved, state approved storage of documents and retrieval of documents, you don't have to pay for a user for that. Is that correct, Michael? Is that the biggest difference?
I'll be honest with you, Madam Supervisor, I'm not very familiar with Laserfish. I think it's a software system for records retention. Is that correct, Heather?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
just-
content management system.
it's a records keeping system. So everything that is in Laserfiche now is something that is, you know, since it was installed, I think in 2019 or right, 2019 or 2018. Everything that comes to our office from that point on is in Laserfiche. And we like, you know, constantly work on that. It is a huge time consumer. And then as like new items come up, we try and like pull the old documents in. So our office still has a ton of, you know, historical documents that eventually will make it their way into Laserfiche. But it's a storage unit, if you will, that meets all of the requirements from the state.
Gotcha. So it,
Mike's frozen. Heather, my understanding is that we have to pay for each user in each department. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
So Stan is correct. We did do
the
it.
same as, I'm
in
sorry,
August of
everybody froze.
2019.
Can you hear me?
We can
Going
hear you.
in and out. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you all froze on me. I don't know what happened. What I was trying to explain was that whether these PDF files get uploaded to Laserfiche or to BSA or onto the network, they have to be converted first from paper to digital, regardless of which end use software you're going to use with it. Does that make sense?
Trustee Wilson also joined the meeting. So Stan is right. We did approve one in 2019. And it was Laserfiche. And the accounting department and purchasing, I think is going to be on that as well.
Well, these documents could definitely be uploaded into the Laserfiche system, but they have to be converted from paper to digital first, regardless of whether they're uploaded to BSA or Laserfiche or some other software system. So this is just the conversion of the old paper files.
Jimmy?
Hi. Yeah, Mike, so basically you're saying the bulk of this cost is the manpower, correct? That it didn't matter really what software we're using. It's going to be the manpower to input or do the
Person
conversion.
power, maybe person.
Person power.
Yes, this is the actual the manual physical disassembling the paper files, running them through high quality scanners, evaluating the digital conversion product, us accepting it, and then disposition of the paper, whether it's destroyed or returned to us, either way. But until that conversion takes place, you don't have anything to put into Laserfiche or BSA or any other software system. So they can certainly be uploaded into any software system that the board or anyone else making those decisions chooses to use, but it has to be converted first.
Okay, I was asking that mainly because I was kind of thinking along the lines of what Treasurer Eldridge was saying about, you know, we had just purchased software and spent quite a bit of money, but it makes sense what you just said, though. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Heather?
Yeah, I just wanted to say too, when we approved that, it was about $28,000. That's from memory. I could go back and find Ruby's paper file. She showed me how to do that. But and that was again to include the clerk's office, and then accounting and purchasing are like, you know, working their way to get onto that. But again, it's a storage system. It's the same thing as buying like Microsoft Office. Like, so great, you have the program now, but you still have to get all of your essays into Microsoft Word format. So kind of like Mike was explaining, we still have to get all of those documents into either BSNA or Laserfiche or whatever other platform you want to. So hopefully that makes a little more sense.
Are we good? The next agenda item, I lost my page. What the heck? Well, I'll just go through here. Mike Hoffmeister. I found it. it was the change order for the community center flooring. Mike Hoffmeister is on the,
Yes, good evening. This is a change order request number 1 for the community center flooring project. I did send a number of images as well as an email late last week in advance of this meeting to inform you all of what's going on. While the abatement company was removing the old flooring and abating the asbestos mastic, they did notice a number of uneven subbase plank wood floors, as well as uneven concrete floor in the kitchen. This is specifically in the kitchen area, the 200 hallway, which is the senior wing, and then the side hallway that goes down to the golf course courtyard, if you will. So this is a change order as presented by the contractor, as well as approved by our construction engineer Spicer Group and Tara Cohen at the county. As this is a CDBG project, she did also have to review and approve this change order prior to coming to you all. And this is to hopefully wrap up and finalize that portion of the project with a little additional funding from the township's budgets.
all right, any questions on that? Michael, we plan on opening up March 1st, is that correct?
Yeah, we're a little bit delayed because of this snafu with the tentative contract date, which was February 12th. But yes, the recreation programming does plan to resume and move back into those offices by March 1st. We're hopefully going to be having a recreation programming push on social media and whatnot here in the very near future. So we're excited to get back into there.
At the next meeting, if we hope to have pictures of things that we will share with everyone so they can see the before and the after, and it's really coming along nicely considering. How old is that building? Doug, you know. Oh, Doug went to high school there, or I mean elementary school.
It's in the 40s.
Yeah, it's in the 40s. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is also, any questions about that? Is the sale and removal of excess township vehicle number 40.
Yes, this is vehicle number 40 that is currently over at Green Oaks Golf Course. This is a well-used 2004 Explorer that we plan on adding to the auction with the vehicles that were approved for sale and removal last fall.
Any questions on that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Newman?
Raise my hand.
That's okay.
Is there going to be a certain price that it's going to sell for, or?
So as part of the financial policy, I have provided an estimated value within the board packet. That is probably what we'll list it as the auction. Traditionally, we have a blue book value that we attach to the board packet as well. But this vehicle in the state that it's in with the mileage, Blue Book wouldn't even give us a value. So we've gone off some professional recommendations from some staff and our, some of our mechanics that work on the vehicles to give us an estimated value of what we can maybe sell it for.
Okay. All right, thanks.
The next item, we're going to take a little break so we can all take a break and go to the bathroom or whatever. Next item is the resolution for payment and use of surplus drain funds for the purpose of installing a rain garden as part of Loon Feather Point Park.
Yes, as you all know, we have received a trust fund grant to renovate Loon Feather Point Park. We're in the process of just had a meeting today regarding the most up-to-date engineering and construction drawings that we'll be coming to you in the near future with. Similar to what we did at the skate park, Washtenaw County has surplus drain construction funds that they're able to allocate to construction projects. And this year, Harry at the Washtenaw County Drain is willing to provide $18,600 in funding for the construction and design assistance with Stantec. And so that will go towards the construction and design of the project. So we're very excited to partner with Washtenaw County again on this one.
And I did send an email to Evan to see if they could coordinate with any of the classes, the with Ypsilanti School, Lincoln Schools, any schools to see if they could be part of it as well. All right. The next item is the payment for surplus drain. I already said that. This is a payment and use of surplus funds as part of the SEMCOG Paint Creek Corridor Grant Project. We applied for a grant last year. We received it. They're doing work on Paint Creek and studying it. It was a joint grant with Pittsfield Township Drain Commission, and we can use our water, it's called their township special funds to pay for this. And that's what this is for. Any questions on that? Next item is budget amendment number 3. This is for Mike Radzik. He described for the professional services for document management and conversion of documents. That's the only budget amendment for that. And the next one is the request to seek sealed bids for the purchase of a new maintenance utility van. And that will come back to the board.
Yes, this is a request to seek sealed bids for a new utility vehicle for our maintenance technicians, along with all of the removal and auctioning of old vehicles. We're also moving a number of vehicles around to streamline our motor pool services. And we are requesting one new vehicle this year for our maintenance technicians. This is a van cutoff vehicle with a large tool box, if you will, in the back where they can stand up. Right now, they're sharing vans, they're sharing tools between vans, and we feel it's more efficient that they can operate out of one vehicle as long as it's safe when COVID hopefully ends in the near future. So.
Questions or comments, and this will come back to the board as well. Any other comments before we adjourn the work session? Okay, we good? All right, it's 6:35 and we'll reconvene at 7. Thank you. If people would let us know that you are present and you're in Ypsilanti Township. Clerk Rowe,
Heather Jo Rowe, President, Ypsilanti Township.
Treasurer Eldridge,
Stan Eldridge, Treasurer, Ypsilanti Township.
Trustee Swanson,
Debbie Swanson, present, Ypsilanti Township.
Trustee Wilson, Trustee Peterson,
Gloria Peterson, President, Ypsilanti Township.
and
Trustee Wilson, present, Ypsilanti Township.
Thank you, Jimmy. Trustee Newman,
John Newman, trustee, Ypsilanti Township.
Brenda Stumbaugh, Supervisor, present, and Ypsilanti Township Civic Center. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing. The first public hearing is for the creation of Special Streetlight Assessment District 221 for Village Grove Apartments. The public hearing was set at the January 19th, 2021 regular meeting. I would like to declare the public hearing open at this time. The time is 7:01. Is the petitioner on the Zoom meeting? Are there any public comments regarding this? Hearing no public comments, Clerk Rowe, will you just go over what the public hearing is for and what we're going to do this evening and come back with a formal resolution at the next meeting?
Yeah, so tonight we have 2 public hearings on the board, and since the other one's for 7:05, I'll just talk about both of them together. So one is for a street light and one is for a camera. This came about through a resolved court case with Stuart Field, the property owner for these two parcels. And in order to just help improve the safety of our communities, we felt that this was a good resolution. So we're going to hold the hearing tonight. And in order to just get some clarification on the language that was agreed upon, we're not going to take any action on these tonight, but this will be fulfilling our public hearing requirement. The property owner was notified standard, like our, every public hearing that we hold, we give them formal notice in the mail, and also just to be extra prudent, our office as well as McLean and Winters sent information on how to access the Zoom hearing that we have tonight. Any questions? I'm happy to entertain them, and I also see that Mr. Razik's on, and Attorney Winters, if anyone has questions for either of them. You're on mute, Madam Supervisor. You're still on mute.
Okay, thank you. I need to formally close the public hearing at 7:03. And then we'll take action on it at the next board meeting. Now I need to open up the public hearing for the creation of a camera special assessment district 076 for Village Grove Apartments. The time is 7:04. Are there any public comments? I don't see anyone. No hands are raised, and the petitioner, or he's not the petitioner, the homeowner or the property owner was notified. So I'm going to declare the public hearing closed at 7:04. Thank you. The public, at this time we have public comments. Are there any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes of the February 2nd, 2021 work session and regular meeting, statements and checks, and treasurer's report for January of 2021.
So moved, Eldridge.
Motion Eldridge.
Support Joe Rowe.
We have a motion and support. Questions or comments on the minutes, statements and checks, or the treasurer's report? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carries. Mr. Winters, do you have an attorney's report?
Madam Chair, I went into detail during the work session about the meeting with the Ypsilanti Community Schools, but one other item that may not be as much as an attorney report as well as a request for additional information. That, of course, concerns the fire at the Clark East Towers, and we all received the email. I'm still not really clear in my mind as to why the entire building was evacuated. I understand what Mike said in his email. Also understand from what Bill Baum's the inspector. And that is the township's only senior housing building that which we participate virtue of a pilot agreement. And so given the number of individuals that were displaced and probably the worst night of the year so far, coupled with the ongoing COVID pandemic and the fear, my mother lives in a different assisted living facility. I can only imagine the fear of being displaced in the middle of a night. I'm not second guessing that anyone's decision. I just want to have an opportunity to sit down with Clark Towers at the right time to get more information behind that decision, and also to find out, just more importantly, how the individuals in that tower are doing. Were they taken to a local nearby motels, hotels? Were they, how were the family members notified of this? Because there's nothing more traumatic, I think, than being displaced due to a fire, especially given the population and the numbers there at Clark East Towers. So I just think because, again, the township has a vested partnership with Clark East Towers, that there may be the opportunity to have some further dialogue. We've had that smaller fire, but similar displacement earlier with the fire at Grove Road back in December, the old Arbor Circle apartments. And I know the American Red Cross is involved in those and they do a fantastic job, but the Clark East Towers one, it's the first one I've seen in quite some time that's resulted in a total evacuation. So like more information at the right time.
Okay, Mike Radzik?
I could share what I was told by Bill Baums, our electrical building inspector who responded out there. The fire marshal and chief had requested assistance from our electrical inspector. He did go out there. He met with the fire marshal and the incident commander for the fire department and management for Clark East Towers. It's my understanding, based on his conversation back to me, that the fire occurred in a kitchen in a unit on the 6th floor, and there was smoke damage. There was fire damage to that unit only, and smoke damage elsewhere on the 6th and 7th floors, but that the automatic fire suppression sprinklers had activated, and of course the fire department, I think, used a little bit of water, and there was water. I was told by a couple of the sheriff's deputies that were there that there was water literally flowing down into the 4th, 5th, 4th, and maybe even into the 3rd floor. So they shut the power off to the building because they had water flowing through active light fixtures and ceilings and other electrical components. And they were concerned about something happening to cause further injury. Our electrical inspector, after evaluating it, determined that they could isolate and shut down the power only to one wing of the building that was immediately affected, and the power could be restored safely to the other wing to allow some people at least to stay. But he was told by management that they felt it was too much of a liability to do so, and until their insurance company cleared them to do that, they were going to evacuate the entire building. I think it was for at least a week, possibly more, waiting for their insurance company to give them the go-ahead to restore power to the building. So that's what I know about it based on what I was told by our employee who was at the scene.
Thank you, Michael. Trustee Newman?
Do we know if, and I'm sure the Red Cross was taking care of them. My concern would be that they have enough food, that they have 3 meals a day, and that they're well taken care of. I mean, from the standpoint that somebody's watching them, or checking up on them, because those were a lot of people. And if they're in different places like motels, hotels, I just am concerned that, nobody's really keeping up with them.
Yeah, I know that AAATA buses took them to the hotels, and I know that Meals on Wheels, I had interaction with them too to find out where they were at. I don't know where they were taken, but I know that AAA actually picked the residents and took them. And the good news is their belongings weren't burnt. They didn't lose a lot of things, but
Yeah.
why they had to move everyone, I don't know, and haven't been able to really talk to anybody.
Right.
So we'll have conversation and find out more information, but
Yeah.
like Mike said, that was kind of the management's call to do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
As we get more information, I'll share it, but I don't know anymore. I'm sorry.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Winters, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I can't find my hand button on here, but I was just going to add that I've seen in the past my mother's medication tray, and it's just hard for me to believe that all the medication, I mean, you're talking about 264 people, many of them with the medications that are prescribed, many of them that are refilled. I mean, it's not that, and I did read what Mike had said in the email. I was just trying to figure out at what point in time we do have a relationship with that as being our senior housing. And I understand it was their decision to do that. I'm just trying to figure out or find out what we may get phone calls ourselves from people about the loved ones. I just want to know exactly more information because of our relationship with and our responsibilities with the Clark East Towers housing, senior housing. And so I just was kind of somewhat taken aback by that. That's all.
And then we'll ask for more information and hopefully they can provide it. Of course, Monday we'll find out more. I agree. Thank God everyone is okay. That's what I'm very thankful for. Under any other questions or comments? Under new business, we have the first reading of resolution 2021-11, proposed ordinance 2021-495, and ordinance amending ordinance 2020-490, prohibiting recreational marijuana establishment in Ypsilanti Township as approved by the Recreational Marijuana Ballot Initiative 1 of 2018. Clerk Rowe?
Yeah, I'm gonna try and screen share so you can read the resolution as I read it. Oh, just kidding, I can't. Lisa, can you let me do that?
Heather, did you ask me to do something?
Nope, there we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought you'd only be able to see this is my notes for later. I'm gonna send you that later. Okay. All right. So I have Charter Township of Ypsilanti Resolution 2021-11 in reference to the proposed ordinance amendments of 2021-495, prohibiting recreational marijuana establishments within Ypsilanti Township is provided by the Recreational Marijuana Ballot Initiative 1 of 2018. Whereas at the regular board meeting of the Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees held on June 16, 2020, the Township Board adopted ordinance number 2020-490, which prohibited recreational marijuana establishments within Ypsilanti Township and provided by the Recreational Marijuana Ballot Initiative 1 of 2018. And whereas Township Ordinance number 2020-490 contained a section entitled Effective Date, which stated inter alia that this ordinance shall cease effect on March 31st of 2021. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has placed constraints on the Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees and the Ypsilanti Township Planning Commission's ability to schedule and hold meetings in person so as to fulfill the township's commitment to achieve community engagement with its residents, neighborhood watch groups, businesses, and all other interested community organizations regarding a number of regulatory and land use decisions that would be codified within the township zoning ordinance as it pertains to recreational marijuana. And whereas the Ypsilanti Township Board of Trustees wishes to fulfill this commitment to community engagement and as such determine that the effective date for ordinance number 2020-490 to cease effect should be extended to until March 31st of 2022, so as to allow for further community engagement as well as the adoption of ordinances and regulations pertaining to recreational marijuana. Now therefore it be resolved, the ordinance amendment number 2021-495 attached hereto is incorporated by reference and is hereby adopted in its entirety. I would so move resolution 2021-11.
Support Wilson.
We have a motion and support. Is there discussion on this? Jimmy, I do want to thank you for reminding us of this. We would have forgot, to be honest. So thank you so much for bringing it forward. I look forward to dealing with this and engaging residents and board members as we move towards a decision. So thank you. We're going to do a roll call vote on this because it is an ordinance. Clerk Gerald Rowe,
Yes.
Treasurer Eldridge,
Yes.
Trustee Peterson,
Yes.
Trustee Swanson,
Yes.
Trustee Newman,
yes,
Trustee Wilson,
Yes,
and Supervisor Stumble votes yes. So the second reading will be not in 2 weeks, right, Heather? Because we have to publish it.
That's correct.
It will be the second meeting in March, probably.
Yes, yeah.
All right, the second item is request to approve proposal for professional services from Bar Engineering to address comments related to the special spillway assessment in an amount not to exceed 29,000, which is budgeted in line item 252-252-000-801-000.
So moved, Eldridge.
Motion Eldridge,
Support Joe Rowe.
discussion. I really do like having work sessions. That's helpful. And I can't wait to have them in person, but it is much better for us, I think, and everyone really. We have a motion and support to approve the line item or the item. All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is request authorized circuit court litigation to abate a public nuisance located at 2835 Coolidge Avenue, budget and line item 101-950-000-801-023.
move to approve, Wilson.
Support Peterson.
Motion Wilson, support Peterson to approve the circuit court action litigation. Are there any questions on this? We discussed it at the work session. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 is a request to approve 4 authorizing documents with the state of Michigan, DTMB Records Management Services and Graphic Sciences to convert Office of Community Standards paper documents to digital imaging in an amount not to exceed $100,000, which is budget and line item 249-249-000-801-000, contingent upon approval of the budget amendment.
So move Peterson.
Support Joe Rowe.
We have a motion by Peterson, support by Gerald Rowe. Discussion?
Madam Supervisor, may I make one comment, please?
Sure.
There's a lot of moving parts on this, and I know we discussed them all, but there was one thing that I forgot to mention earlier. And I think Trustee Peterson and some others brought up security and retention of documents. We're going to do the same thing with this project as we did with the original project with the 800,000 property files. They did not take all of them at once. They took them in small groups over time so that they were not all removed and boxed up and removed and transported at the same time. In the knock on wood, unlikely event that some kind of catastrophe in transportation would occur, we wouldn't lose everything. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
And I forgot to ask in the work session, Attorney Winters, have you had the opportunity to review the contract?
Yes, well, actually, there are 4 contracts. They're somewhat similar because they're the same. It's the same contract for 4 different departments. And all that I would suggest as a segue to what Mike was saying is that because each department, at least the way I'm reading it right now, has to pack these materials for GSI to pick up, at least that's what it says in the document, then maybe you do one department at a time. I don't know, because when the documents get returned back from GSI, that department has 30 days to either go thumbs up or thumbs down on what they receive back. And by doing it one at a time, that might create some degree of order in regards to making sure you don't have too many documents out there at one time by doing one department at a time. On the disk themselves, I don't believe there be any kind of a copyright issue, but I would encourage the board and maybe it was discussed, I didn't quite pick it up during the work session, to have as many copies made of the disc that can be accessed by a department, other interdepartments that have reason to look up information. I know that in the past, when Denny and I have had cases that go back a number of years, we have found those files to be invaluable in terms of providing history, copies of the township zoning ordinances that were in effect back in 1950, 60, 70. Back, as Brenda said, when I was in high school over there at the golf course. But anyways, we do need to have those documents that we can access those. And I'd like to know if there's any training that they'll provide for us after they return the documents, because information is power. And I think that just knowing what I have seen over the years, that my paper files have gone back 40 years, and I also have the current files on the computer, but sometimes you need a combination of both to get a real good picture as to what you're dealing with. And so again, the number of discs, how they would be maintained for FOIA purposes was covered. I do think that a training component, and maybe that's something that could be done in-house. I just don't know. But in terms of signing the documents, they're going to be presented to the township officials electronically to be e-signed. But I would sign those, but I would try and stagger which department goes first and do one at a time.
Okay.
I think that's a really good idea.
Michael's frozen again. Well, Doug, I did look at the. That's all right. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry, I think everybody froze again. I
You
was just
froze.
saying, yeah, sorry. I think that's a really good idea from Mr. Winters. We'll just do it in the numerical order 1 through 4, each department. And we try not, once we receive the original discs, we get those copied onto our network for our daily use of those files. And then we put the discs away so that they're not constantly being used, because the more you use them, the quicker they wear out. And as far as training goes, the last time we did internal training, we had a couple of key people. Back then it was myself and Nancy Robakowski. This time it'll be myself and Christy Troy, who would know exactly how the files were named and the process to use to search for information. And then we did internal training to teach the rest of the staff and staff from any other department that had reason to want to look for things.
The only other question I had is, in the contract, it does say that the staff will box it up, but unless we put it into other terms and conditions, and I didn't know if you wanted to do that, or.
I'm going to have to check with GSI, because I was under the impression that they would box it, which is what happened last time. So I will check with them first thing tomorrow and verify that. If we're going to box it, most of it's already in boxes, so that shouldn't be a big, huge task.
Okay, because it just does, it says that the township, which is the agency, will pack any material requires scanning and will contact GCSI, but it sounds like they're mostly in boxes anyways.
Yes, I think the only thing that's not currently would be the assessor's files. They're in filing cabinets. So I would get in touch. Tomorrow morning, I'll talk with Brian McCleary and Linda Goslin and figure out how they'd like to proceed with that. We can certainly provide staff to help them.
So if we want to do that, we might want to look under 12.
Okay.
We need to, someone needs to mute their microphone. I'm not sure who. Okay, so we have a motion of support to approve it. Looking at that one section of the ordinance to see if who you want to box it up. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, Mr. Winters, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, just for maybe inventory control purposes, and maybe it's just me. I think it'd be a good idea that when they come to pick up whatever number of boxes that they do, someone take their cell phone and either photograph the number of boxes that are being delivered. I know you're saying that they're gonna be marked, but, in terms of just, making sure that everybody's on the same pages. I don't know how many boxes that they're talking about, but given the number of files that are listed in the contract proposal, it sounds to me like there's gonna be quite a few boxes that are gonna be hauled away, and I just think there ought to be some kind of inventory control sheet or photographs as to how many boxes they're actually going out for assessing, et cetera, because you're sort of taking the history of the township with you when you leave with those boxes. So I just think you need to make sure we document what's going out and what's coming back, because there's too much at stake here, I guess. Just a suggestion.
There is a process to assign a production work order to it, but taking a picture's that's always a good idea, I think. I have to agree.
It is.
I
and
think
we-
all of us hate to let go of documents. I know we do.
I'll make sure we do that.
So we have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is to request, number 5 is a request to approve change order number 1 for the community center flooring project in the amount of $10,960.42, which is budgeted in line item 230-751-000-931-021.
So moved, Joe Rowe.
Support Wilson.
We have a motion and support. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 6 is a request approval for the sale or removal of township vehicle number 40, which is a 2000 Ford Explorer.
So moved, Eldridge.
Support Peterson.
Peterson.
There's a motion by Eldridge, support by Peterson. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7 is resolution 2109, request for payment and use of surplus drain funds for the purpose of installing a rain garden as part of the Loon Feather Point Park MD NRTF grant project.
So move Swanson.
Support, Eldridge.
We have a motion and support to approve the resolution. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 8 is resolution 2021-10, which is payment and use of surplus funds as part of the SUMCOG Paint Creek Green Corridor Grant Project.
Move to approve Wilson.
Support Swanson.
There's a motion by Wilson, support by Swanson. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9 is budget amendments. Clerk Gerald Rowe.
Yeah, I have budget amendment number 3, and this is outlined in Mike Razek's request to do all of the scanning documents, and it's just being changed from a prior year fund balance. Any questions on that? So it's I would so move to increase the building fund budget by $100,000 to $873,229, and to approve the department line items changes as outlined.
Motion. Oh, it was by Heather,
Support
Gerald Rowe,
Wilson.
supported by Wilson. Did I get that correct?
Yep.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam Chair, Sorry, I just have a question. I didn't catch who made the motion for item number 7, and I want to make sure I wrote that down. The resolution for the surplus for the drain funds.
I didn't write it down.
Swanson made it, Eldridge supported.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Under authorization and bids, number 1, we have a request to seek sealed bids for the purchase of a new maintenance utility van. This will come back to the board.
So moved, Eldridge.
Support Peterson.
We have a motion by Eldridge, support by Peterson to seek sealed bids for the purchase of a new maintenance utility van. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business? Board member updates? Does anyone have any?
Madam Chair.
Clerk Giroux?
Yeah, I'll just add that the state of Michigan concluded their risk limiting audit process that, started back a couple months ago, and it overwhelmingly supported and upheld the integrity of our elections statewide. So I thought that was really exciting news and just wanted to share that with you all.
Good. Any other comments? Board update? We've had a meeting about the continued issue with rats and in some of the areas in the township. We started a rat storm drain baiting program, and that'll be coming back to the board, and we'll update everyone. They are moving. They're still in West Willow. We're still getting concerns from residents in West Willow. So we're going to try to put a plan together and educate people about how to not have places where they can have access to food and shelter, like abandoned vehicles, junk stored on property, etc. And then the third leg of it is to do ordinance enforcement as well. So we'll be bringing that back to the board, and it just continues to be an issue. So they've identified them on Ecorse Road area, and they're checking the storm drains in Galt Village as well. So I hate this subject, but it is a public health, really it is. So and I wanted to update you guys on it. I sent an email to Clark Towers to find out more information, and she's the person, the regional manager that we deal with, Makita Hunt, is out due to illness, and I don't know when she's going to return. So I'll try to talk to the manager on site to get more information and an update on that. Any other questions, comments? No. All right. Motion to adjourn at 7:35.
Madam Chair, Mr. Winters had his hand up.
Well, I
can't find the button. I can't find the button on this.
there is a button.
I know, I can't find it. Anyways, in regards to the rats in Galt Village, we did make contact, Denny did, with the attorney for the owner of Galt Village, and he was going to reach out to Evan Pratt and was going to try to get authorization to get access into the Galt Village building to also put rat bait, whatever, inside those buildings over there, because I do know that the neighbors were concerned about the rats were coming from Galt Village. So we're trying to also attack it from the property owner public nuisance standpoint, and we have made contact with the attorney. So
Yes, thank
sorry
you.
about the hand raising, but
And they're also going to do like a community cleanup day and put the large bin. So they're going to coordinate a community cleanup day too, so people can get rid of their stuff. They did that in West Willow, and that was very successful. So if people had a way to, take it and just dump it, that's going to be very helpful to the residents. Did someone have their hand raised?
I had my hand up, so this is Swanson. I just wanted to express my gratitude to staff again. I feel like as a new trustee, staff is going above and beyond to make sure that everybody's informed. So I want staff to know that I appreciate that. The other thing I'd like to say is I had the opportunity to go visit the clerk's office to get signed in for a couple of committees, and the way the employees were all working together to meet the needs of our residents as far as taxes go was impressive to see how many people were like all hands on deck, helping residents, greeting them at the door. So hats off to the treasurer's office and all the employees who stepped in to just collectively take care of our residents. I appreciate you. I'm sure the whole board does. So that's probably on behalf of the whole board. We appreciate the employees and the hard work you're doing on behalf of our residents every day.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn would be in order?
Motion to adjourn.
Support Eldridge.
Okay, we have who made the motion?
Peterson.
Peterson, okay. Support Eldridge. Motion to adjourn at 7:38. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.